meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting has been provided by advertisement in the Cape May Star and Wave on the Township website and has been posted on the bulletin board of Township Hall.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Conrad.
Here.
Councilmember Neville.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Clark.
Here.
Mayor Beck.
Here. Okay, before we begin the consent agenda tonight, at the work session, we have, I'm going to turn it over to our solicitor, Chuck. We have Francis Campbell on the school funding issue regarding Cape May. So you would feel free to take this over, Chuck, and introduce and this fine gentleman up. Thank you.
A couple of meetings ago, the mayor, you particularly, and council, decided that we had to take whatever measures necessary to oppose Cape May's attempt to withdraw from the regional school district or to alter the funding formula in any way. In that regard, I was asked to locate a professional that could handle such a job. I polled all of the attorneys who were on the front lines of this particular endeavor, the attorneys that were involved in the Oradell cases, the New Haley cases, and all of the leading cases in this area that have been dealt with by the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court most recently. And just about all of them recommended Frank Campbell, who is with us tonight. Frank has a long history of dealing with this particular area of law, and in fact we're lucky enough to have the counsel for the respondent township, Berkeley Township, in a case that was just recently handed down by the Appellate Division and just recently, as recently as 3 weeks ago, approved for publication. And that was a case where Seaside Park made an attempt, almost exactly like Cape May is presently making, to withdraw from their regional school district. And I'm happy to say, with Frank's assistance representing Berkeley Township, that application was soundly defeated in the Appellate Division, and they were defeated on all counts. So, having said all of that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Frank Campbell. He'd like to address us, come up, explain to us the process of what we're involved in, what we can expect along the way, and just educate us in general about all the things involved.
Thank you very much, Chuck. I don't want to have my back to any of the members of the public, and I certainly don't want to have my back to my client.
And the camera's over there.
Which is your best side?
Well, I think if the camera is here, I guess, huh? So maybe I should stand over there.
Whatever works.
You tell me.
You're fine.
Thank you for your introduction, Chuck. My office has represented school boards for a long time. I'm the former general counsel of the New Jersey School Boards Association quite a few years ago. But in these kinds of regional school district disputes, one of the things that I always represent to the client towns or the potential client towns is that I will not represent those towns that are attempting to withdraw to save the money that they would save because they believe the system is unfair to them. And let me explain why I believe Cape May City believes that the system is unfair to Cape May City. Now, let me tell you also, I don't agree at all that it's unfair to Cape May City, and I'll explain why. If you lived in a K-12 district anywhere in the state of New Jersey, and you lived, let's say, in the rich part of town, with high on a hill, with a very well-to-do neighborhood, with houses worth more than the rest of town, let me just tell you that you would be taxed on the basis of what we call the equalized value of your property. Now, equalized value in a nutshell, is what the county tax board does in every county in the state of New Jersey. You would go to the county board of taxation, and they have professionals there that take a look at the sales of property. Now, it may be in certain areas that in the last few years, I can tell you up in Ocean County and Monmouth County, where my clients are mostly located, those values of certain properties have gone down with Hurricane Sandy, and I'm sure that it must have had some kind of a similar result here in Cape May County. So, in fact, some people have seen reductions in the values of their property. The County Board of Taxation looks at what the sales are, and they equalize all of the sale values. Even if your assessment, let's say, is $100,000 on a parcel of property, if they find out that very similar properties sell for, instead of $100,000, $89,000, that's about a 10% reduction, and they will adjust the equalized value of the properties in that neighborhood based on actual sales or based on the fair market value of property. So understand, that is what equalized value is. It's adjusted every year, and values go up or down based on what the market says the properties are worth, or at least what comparable properties are worth. They can't actually tell you exactly what each parcel is worth, but they compare like properties, and they determine whether the values have gone up or the values have gone down. Now, along the shore, I can tell you, because I've had client school districts along the shore in Ocean County and Monmouth County, almost no matter what happens with the economy, it appears that beach property and properties with views of the ocean or views of the bay, they tend to have higher values, regardless of what the market says. And so I can tell you along Long Beach Island in Ocean County, those properties have not decreased in value, unless, of course, they were particularly stricken by something like Hurricane Sandy. But even those properties have retained their values because of where they are, because there's only so many properties located in that area. Well, your friends and neighbors in the city of Cape May are in a good position for retaining values of their properties because of their location. And as a result, their values over a period of many years they've consistently increased in the market value. And that, again, is based on what they can tell, what the County Board of Taxation, this is a county group, and for all of Cape May County, they will determine whether property values have increased or decreased, and the equalized value of those properties on a county-wide basis is determined based on the market. So if the market tells you that the properties in the city of Cape May continue to increase, and much more rapidly than some of the property values in Lower Township or in West Cape May, if that occurs, you can be sure that the tax burden will be increased on properties, the values of which have increased. So if Cape May City, if the average living space that you occupy in Lower Township can be sold for twice as much, or maybe 3 times as much in Cape May City, well, guess what? On an equalized basis, those people who own those properties that can be sold for that much more are going to rightly bear an increased property tax burden based on the market value of their property as it's measured every year. Around the end of September of every year, they come out with a table which determines whether property values increase or decrease, and sometimes they do go down, depending on market conditions or depending on things like Hurricane Sandy. That can affect market value. Over the years, I can tell you that Cape May City has inexorably increased in its values. The average property in Cape May City has gone up and up in value, and so the properties may be more expensive to pay for, but they hold their value very well, and in fact have continued to increase in their value. One of the things that the people of Cape May City are probably saying is, we have only 60-something kids that go to the regional school district, and we're paying $5 million each year. That doesn't sound fair. Well, we can all think of things on a pay-as-you-go basis. If you went to the movies and everybody here went, everybody would pay a certain price for a ticket. That's one way of looking at things. That's what we call a head tax. But in the state of New Jersey, for many, many years, over 100 years now, property support for the public schools has been determined on the values of the properties, on what the properties are worth. Not based on how many kids live in a house, not based on how many kids live in a certain section of town. Generally speaking, the entire town where no kids live, and I'll give you an example. You look at a shopping center. How many kids go to school from the shopping center? 0. Nobody lives there. But are they exempt from property taxes to support public schools? Absolutely not. The state of New Jersey decided on a policy basis, and policies are decided by the state legislature and the governor, who signs things into law, and the state legislature that develops the laws. And under New Jersey statutes, the value of property has always been the basis for determining what the tax burden should be. And so what we see is, as probably all properties have increased in value on an average, but as certain properties increase on a faster basis, their share of taxes for not just regional school districts, and that's one thing I want to make sure I mention here. Your county taxes are also assessed on an equalized value basis. So if they're rebelling over the regional school taxes, how come they're not rebelling over the county taxes? Well, I can tell you why. Because that fight happened about 65 years ago in certain cases, where the fact that counties were going to determine what their revenues for supporting and maintaining county services would be based on equalized value of properties, that there were counties up in, I think up in Passaic County, where some of the leaders were, they didn't like paying county taxes on the same basis as the city of Paterson, which was fast decreasing in value because of urban blight and other things like that. Actually, the cities of New Jersey used to be where the highest property values were, where the best schools were for many years. If you went to Newark, if you went to Jersey City, if you went to Paterson, those were the lighthouse districts because they had factories, they had plenty of workers, they had all kinds of developed property, and for years, that's where property value was located, in our cities. That changed, and with the migration of the population to the suburbs, and with the abandonment of many of these most valuable properties, which were involved in manufacturing, etc., commercial properties, the values in the cities went down quite a bit. But the Supreme Court determined some years ago that the state legislature was responsible for ensuring that all school children in the state of New Jersey, by reason of what the Constitution says, the Constitution makes the legislature responsible for a system of thorough and efficient schools throughout the entire state. The Supreme Court said, well, look, those with high property values, they're well able to support their schools. Those with low property values are not as able to support their schools, so you've got to do something about it. And the legislature changed the system of funding, and they determined that those areas that had lesser property values and comparatively more school children going to the public schools would receive state aid. Why? Because the legislature was responsible to make sure that they could provide a thorough and efficient system of public schools, regardless of where those school districts were located. So that's when things started to change in the 1970s. And in 1976, there was a law pending called the Public School Education Act of 1975. It wasn't enacted yet, but it was introduced into the legislature in 1975. So finally, the Supreme Court said to the legislature, look, if you don't fund a more constitutionally equitable system of public schools, we're going to close the schools. And if you think back, you might remember that on July 1st, 1976, all of the public schools in New Jersey were closed. And that was to hold the gun to the head of the legislature, so to speak, so that they would do something, because they hadn't done it for 2 years after the original decisions were handed down. Well, that got the legislature's attention, and the legislature, within 10 or 11 days, on or about July 10th, they enacted the Public School Education Act of 1975. One of the things that happened at that time was a change in the way that regional school districts would be funded. Let me explain. Some regional school districts were funded on an equalized value basis. The same way that I was talking about, that you just took to all the property in the regional, you found out what it was worth, and you assessed a uniform tax rate. And to my way of thinking, that is a relatively fair way of funding schools. And it isn't based on how many kids live someplace or another place. It's based on property values on an equalized basis, and everybody is assessed the same tax rate. Now let me explain also, Lower Township taxpayers, which I assume is most of the people here, Lower Township taxpayers pay exactly the same regional school tax rate as the people in the city of Cape May. So you're paying based on what your properties are worth. If your properties are assessed for $250,000, you're going to pay taxes based on that equalized value. I shouldn't say assessed. I should say are valued on an equalized basis, on a market value basis, because it goes up and down, mostly up, thank goodness. Although lately it has been going down, and many houses are worth less than they were 3 or 4 years ago. But what I'm saying is that the equalized value of properties located throughout the regional district is the basis of the taxation for every property that is taxable within the entire Lower Cape May Regional School District. So, if they're paying more in taxes in the city of Cape May, or if they're paying more in taxes in the borough of West Cape May, it's because values are higher, and that's an equalized basis. So they're paying the same tax rate as somebody in Lower Township. And I'm sure there are some houses in Lower Township that pay plenty of tax because they're highly valued. They might have a view of the bay. They might have just a great location that increases their value. They might have a lot of square footage. So those people are going to pay a pretty high tax based on what their properties are worth. But in the city of Cape May, where they have fewer children, and don't forget, before that time, remember I told you that in 1976, the Supreme Court made them change the school funding formula. What they did, they said to regional school districts, if you're assessed on a pay-as-you-go basis, what I call a head tax, you can't do that anymore, because they found that that was very disequalizing. What would happen is a place like the city of Cape May would be able to send their 100 kids, this is going back some years, they probably had about 100 kids some years ago, and if they were paying before 1975 on a head tax of so much per child, you can see that they were paying a lot less, much, much less, even than Lower Township, which at that time was not as nearly as well developed as it is today. But what happened is, as Lower Township increased in population, what happens? The school population goes up. So you tend to have many, many more resident children going to the regional school system, and indeed, I'm sure, to the elementary school system too, here in Lower Township. The legislature determined that regional school districts would from now on be funded in the same way as K-12 school districts. So what did that mean? That meant that every district would fund its operation based on the actual value of the properties located throughout the district. So let's take just Lower Cape May Regional. Lower Cape May Regional has 3 constituent towns. It has the borough of West Cape May, it has the city of Cape May, and it has the Township of Lower. Now, Township of Lower continues to grow because it has more developable space, and so more of the school children live here. Now, if you were paid on a head tax, as it used to be paid, let me tell you, you would be paying all kinds of money more than the other 2 towns. And because you just have more children that go to school. But that has no longer been the system. Now it's funded the same way as every K-12 district is funded. I should say pre-K-12, because education now starts for 3-year-olds, and public schools are responsible for certain 3-year-olds. So the general K-12 district always funded based on this equalized value. So no matter where you lived in that town, whether you had a lot of kids going from your neighborhood or very few kids attending the public schools from your neighborhood, didn't matter. You were assessed based on the value of your house. And from my way of looking at it, that's a relatively progressive tax, because if I can't any longer afford to live in my $1 million house, I can always sell it. And if the market value is $1 million, I'm really not in a bad place. I can move to a smaller house or a different location where I'm going to pay a lot less in taxes. So you had an option. So it's important to understand that people who think their taxes are too high do have an option to sell a house that has a high value and take the proceeds from that house and relocate to someplace that they may find taxably more affordable. Anybody with common sense can see that if you live in the city of Cape May and you think your taxes are too high and you live in a house that's assessed at a value of $1 million, and I'm just speaking hypothetically, but well, at least you can sell it, and then move to someplace smaller where you'll pay a lot less in taxes. Now, in the city of Cape May, if I own $1 million house and I don't like my taxes, as I say, I think I have an option. I believe the properties in the city of Cape May are very saleable. And as I understand the issue that we have here, and I haven't studied the feasibility report all that carefully yet, we're looking at it now, but there are many, many property owners in the city of Cape May who, guess what, don't live there. They live somewhere else. These are 5%. 75%. I mean, that's a very high percentage of what I would call absentee landlords, or people who just come down and visit. Well, God bless them if they can do that as a second home. They might be able to do that, but they have the wherewithal. They don't get to vote in this type of election, and that's something that I'm probably going to belabor before I step away from the mic. I want to explain what is going on with this attempt to withdraw, and as I understand it, we're going to have a referendum on Election Day, and that referendum will be whether or not the city of Cape May should be able to withdraw from the Lower Camden County Regional School District. And the reason they want to do that is they believe that they're paying too high a share. Well, that's like letting the rich people in your town, in one town, just say, oh, well, we don't send too many kids there, so we don't want to belong anymore. Well, that's not how that works. That's not a fair way for funding a regional school district. Ever since the law changed, regional school districts, now they do have the option to vote on changing their formula, But I can tell you that since that option has existed, only one school district in the entire state of New Jersey has ever voted to modify the formula, and they went from an equalized value basis to a per pupil basis. And that was the West Windsor-Plainsboro School District, the only district that has ever done it. And when I found out they did it, after so many had not been unable to do it, I called up someone who I knew who worked in the district, and I said, well, how did this happen? And I knew the board attorney. So I asked him, what happened? He says, well, they figured out that the formula was about the same either way. In other words, when you divided it on a per capita basis for the number of children that live in the district, or you do it on an equalized value basis, it ended up being the same. And so they decided at that time, the voters and the mayors and councils in both towns said, look, at least it's more stable if we do it on a per capita basis. And so that's why they changed the formula. It really didn't change the dollars between the two districts. So no harm, no foul. They both paid about the same anyway. But they're the only district that has ever done it, because in most situations, and I predict in this situation, there would be winners and losers. The big winners here would be the city of Cape May, because their bill would go down by over $4 million. Now, what would happen to your regional school system if you lost $4 million and had to somehow try to make it up? Terry Crowley's going to talk a little bit more about what he thinks what effect that would have on the education system that you have in the Lower Cape May regional school system. But I can tell you the news would be horrible for the operation of your regional school system. It would devastate what programs they would be able to offer for kids. One of the things that New Jersey determined a long time ago is that everybody pays for schools. And while many of you may not have any school-aged children, you might have school-aged grandchildren, many of you may not have kids in the schools anymore. I hope you do understand that public schools are really an investment in the future of your community, because they educate everybody, no matter where they live. They provide, kids wouldn't be able to read and write, frankly, if you didn't have your schools. Some type of schools, and generally most people go to the public schools. So I'm philosophically very much tied to public education, because I believe it is one of the most important investments in anyone's community, no matter where it is in the state of New Jersey, and that's in our Constitution. So our Constitution says if you're an owner of commercial property, if you're an owner of residential property, no matter where you are, you must contribute to public schools, because it is that investment in the future of the state. So if we philosophically get to that point where we recognize that public schools are supported by all of us, no matter whether we have kids in the schools or not, no matter if you send your kids to a private school, you still pay the taxes that support the public school system, so that the system can be free and public to any child who resides in the state. I hope that most of you agree with that philosophy. I know many of us who don't have kids in the schools anymore think we pay a lot of school taxes, and let me tell you what would happen if the city of Cape May withdrew from the regional school district. Whatever you think you're paying in regional school district taxes now would escalate severely, severely. Your school taxes for the regional school district would go up. And here's why people sometimes vote for tax increases. If they think they're fair, well, then they can philosophically absorb some people. They may not like it, but they may vote for a tax increase. I can tell you today that your mayor and council know very well that it would make no sense at all for the voters of Lower Township to ever vote for this withdrawal, which is going to be posed by the city of Cape May. And the reason why it makes no sense, it takes a huge portion of the regional tax base out of the school district. And who would bear the makeup of the taxes that you would lose? Well, mostly Lower Township would be responsible because, and I'm sure there would be all kinds of cutbacks to very important programs to many, many kids. And most of them are residents of Lower Township. So it would really be, I think, a terrible social decision for that to happen, and for anybody in Lower Township ever to vote for a withdrawal. It would be removing $5 million of the regional tax base. That makes no sense at all.
Mr. Campbell, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said that there was only one person that ever got it, one municipality that ever got any relief. And that was a municipality where it was pretty much the same result whether you picked either method.
Exactly.
So did that go to a vote to the voters?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and the voters actually voted for that?
That's exactly right.
And all the towns voted for that?
It was a decision of there's only two in that district. It was the West Windsor Regional District, and Plainsboro voted in favor of changing it to a per pupil funding basis,
Okay.
and so did West Windsor.
Okay, now, since it would raise Lower Township's taxes significantly, nobody in their right mind would vote for that in this particular town.
I hope not.
Okay, has anyone ever gotten relief in that circumstance?
Where it would increase the taxes, it has never been able to pass. There has been one very different system, and that was in the Manchester Regional School District, where there was a racial issue, and it was seen by the courts that one of the towns, which is the borough of North Haledon, wanted to withdraw, and they suspected, the court saw that there were racial issues which were motivating that. So they did not allow that referendum to succeed. They set aside the referendum in that case.
Okay, so is it safe to say that since the majority of the voters are in Lower Township, that what Mr. Gagliardi is proposing for Cape May could never happen?
Well, not unless everybody here is sitting on their brains. No, it would never. It should never happen in the regional district.
Because in order for it to happen, Lower Township would have to vote for it to happen.
That's exactly right, and Chuck is making this point, and this is the point you all want to remember. These elections are very important, but you have to go to the polls. You must go to the polls because there is nothing in your interests that favors allowing Cape May City to withdraw. Absolutely nothing. It'll hurt the school system. It'll really hurt you in the pocketbook. And what will happen? Nothing will change except the system of education will be absolutely hamstrung by that. They will be cutting programs left and right. That's what will happen. So it makes no sense in any way that I can think of. And that's the point I think Chuck wants me to hammer home. And it really makes absolutely no sense for you ever to vote as a citizen and a voter in the Township of Lower that you would allow this withdrawal to take place.
And this issue has come up in many municipalities, largely brought by Mr. Gagliardi. Is that true?
That is true.
And in situations, as you just described, that apply to us, relief has never been had.
Never, because they can never pass the vote. And that's what should happen here. Now, that doesn't stop them from trying other things. I can tell you I'm in a case up in the Riverdale Regional School District, another two-town district, and they're attempting to show, that was before this recent decision came out. The recent decision that was on August 12th was written by Judge Axelrad, who was a tax judge. And when I was there arguing before that, not that I really try to flatter the judges that I argue before, but I said to Judge Axelrad, I said, you know, it's such a great thing that this case was assigned to your panel. She was the presiding judge at the panel. I said, because this is a tax case. Anybody who tries to make it into an education case is fooling themselves, because it is not. It's nothing about education directly. It's all about taxes. And what they're trying to do in the city of Cape May is they are trying to say, well, because the statutes allow us to hold a vote both on methodology of how we pay, by a head tax, which is what they would like, or by equalized assessed value, which is what the legislature imposed in 1976, I can tell you that The equalized value method is far more progressive. It is far more fair to all of the people in the town. And I don't care what the people in Cape May City. I'll argue with them. They can argue till they're blue in the face, but they're wrong if they're thinking that because they would save over $4 million, that makes it more fair. It does not, because then they would not be paying for the regional school system based on the value of their properties. They no longer would be paying a school tax on that basis. And that's what the legislature made the statement for in 1976 as the Supreme Court held the gun to their head. They changed the funding formula to be based on the values of properties statewide. Now, there are some exceptions to that. They want what we call a send-receive relationship, and the laws governing what we call send-receives are based on the actual per-pupil costs. So it goes back to that per-pupil basis, which is exactly what the city of Cape May wants. And they think it's fair. They think it's fair because it saves $4 million or more. Well, it sounds fair if you live in the city of Cape May, but let me assure you that it is not fair. What you have now is a fair system of taxation, and your mayor and council are only arguing that fair systems should stay in place. So they're not arguing anything about, well, let's be fairer to Lower Township. It's not any more unfair to Lower Township to pay the way you are paying now, because you pay based on the actual equalized market value of your property. That's a fair system. So do they. So does the borough of West Cape May. So it's really a uniformly fair system that property owners bear the brunt of what it costs to run the public schools, and you should have school board members who understand that they can't just put every program that they want in the schools. Why? Because that wouldn't be fair to the taxpayers either. So I'm sure that your school board members always look at the fact that they not only serve the school population, they do serve the children, and they're probably the most important constituents, and they don't even vote. But the second most important constituents are certainly the taxpayers. And what I made clear to the mayor and council when I first spoke to them, I said, this is a tax case. You must stress, and they have, obviously, we have a pretty packed house today. You must stress to your voters and taxpayers that for them to support any system of withdrawal will only have just egregious effects on the taxes that you will be paying for the regional school district. And I made a reference before to the Cape May County taxes. Again, the people are assessed in the city of Cape May based on the value of their houses. Exactly the same system that the regional school district is funded by. So if it's unfair for regional school districts to be funded that way, then why don't they lead the secession from the county of Cape May? Let them be the county of the city of Cape May, I guess. I mean, it's absurd to think about that, but that's exactly the analogy that you have to make. If you withdraw from the county because you don't like the county taxes, do you think you really have a right to do that? Of course you don't. Now, unfortunately, because of the regional school district statutes, they do have a right to bring certain questions before the voters. And you are the bulk of the voters. So you can determine how any such referendum will go. And all I can tell you, and I guess I've told you, and then I told you again, and now I'm telling you the last time, for you to vote in favor of such a system that lets them withdraw or lets them modify the system of taxation would be absurd. It is not unfair, and it would hit you where you would feel it worst. It would raise your taxes unquestionably, because somebody would have to make up the difference of the funding. Maybe not all of the funding, but then the schools themselves, the programs for the school children will certainly suffer. And I don't think that's a good thing either. I don't think high taxes are good, and I don't think that victimizing the school children who attend your public schools is at all laudable. That is not a goal that anybody should be proud of. And I hope that your neighbors in the city of Cape May will understand that and that will motivate them not to favor this referendum. And there, as I understand it, there's an advisory referendum that's likely to be held on November 5th, and that will be an advisory question asking you whether you think Cape May City should withdraw. And I hope you understand that the answer is almost without quibble at all. You can't quibble about it. The answer is no. They should not be allowed to withdraw. They should. It's like the rich part of town saying, okay, we're out of here. We're going to be our own township over here. Well, New Jersey doesn't allow that to happen. They do allow it to happen in regional school districts if the voters, if the majority of voters go to sleep. And I know you're not asleep. You're all paying very kind attention to me, and at this point, I think if Chuck has any remarks, or if any of the members of the town council have any questions, they certainly should have the right to ask questions. And you, as members of the public, I understand that you generally have the right to ask questions. And if I can answer them, I certainly will.
Well, the most important question that needs to be asked, I already asked, and that is that Lower Township themselves would have to vote for this thing for it to have any possibility of success, even if, and that the relief that Cape May seeks in a circumstance like ours has never been had and can never be had under the present circumstances. And I don't know that we need to ask any more than that at this point in time.
No, and I think that's...
Well, I do have one other question. It's a very important question. How long do these battles often usually take?
Well, I can tell you that I've been in the Central Regional School District dispute has gone on since 2005, and I became the attorney for Berkeley Township in 2007. So I've been representing them continuously in this ongoing dispute since 2007.
And just so everybody knows, we did a request from Seaside Park as to when they actually began that pursuit, and it was in 2004. So that particular battle has been going on for 9 years.
Yep.
There are other battles that have gone on significantly longer than that, isn't that true?
That is true, and the other district is the Manchester Regional School District.
And all of them with no relief?
Well, Manchester Regional got a little bit of relief because they did win the referendum.
That was the situation where they amended the formula to be 2/3 property valuation, 1/3 per head. In other words, they got 1/3 of the relief they sought.
That's correct, and they did win the referendum in that case.
And that was a case where the town that opposed it actually voted for it.
Yes.
Or the respondent was actually voted for it.
That's exactly
Which
right.
could never happen in this circumstance.
Well, it should never happen. Anything can happen. If the voters stay home, if you all stayed home on Election Day, anything could happen.
Okay.
But please don't. Yes, sir.
Yeah. If the referendum fails, what's the option for Cape May City to do then?
What I know Mr. Gagliardi will try to do, although I think this latest case now gives us authority to basically shoot him in the neck. But the latest case that was just handed down, really the appellate division for the first time really described how the regional system worked, and Judge Axelrod made it very clear that the legislature makes the laws and there really should be no way around them. So if they lose the referendum, they lose the battle and the war. That's the first time an appellate court has actually said that. And I'm very proud to have been a representative of the largest town. As a matter of fact, it's analogous to representing Lower Township. Berkeley Township is the big King Kong in the district. There are a lot of small towns, but most of the voters reside in Berkeley Township. And we overwhelmingly defeated the referendum. And that's what the court found to be absolutely significant. Mr. Gagliardi was saying that the system of taxation was unconstitutional. Well, I said, it was passed by the legislature, signed by the governor. How in the world can he make the argument that it's unconstitutional? Well, the court agreed with us. And so he may, though, I can tell you what he tries to pull. He tries to say that there are constitutional grounds why they are kept in the district. And he may do this here, I'm not sure. maybe the people who rule the city of Cape May will get smart and won't go on with this. And that's what we're hoping. We're hoping to discourage any such efforts because they're expensive. And you really, there's so much at stake with your taxes, you cannot afford to turn the other cheek or look at them with a blind eye. You really, I mean, that's the only reason why I was engaged. It was because the mayor and council said, well, we can't let this happen. So I'm here to try and shorten that fight any way that I can, and one of the ways that I know the mayor and council are attempting to influence what will happen hereafter is to discourage the city of Cape May. Let them read this Berkeley Township case. Let them read what Seaside Park spent all this money for and got no result. And by the way, one of the things I can tell you, they did file, I was telling Chuck today, they were likely to file a petition for certification to the New Jersey Supreme Court. So they're taking it up if they can. I don't think the Supreme Court will pay any attention to their petition for certification, but Mr. Gagliardi is going to point out to them that they, the New Jersey Supreme Court, were the ones who made a very narrow exception in the case where North Haledon won their referendum, and they gave them a special kind of relief. Off the record, I think the Supreme Court was wrong in what they did, because they had no briefs in front of them that argued all the things that we argued in front of Judge Axelrod. And I don't even know how it happened because I wasn't in that case, but I couldn't imagine what was going on that the Supreme Court did it. And this is the only thing I can tell you is that I believe that the New Jersey Supreme Court decided because they overturned a referendum by reason of racial issues. They said we can't allow schools to be segregated on basis of race and ethnicity. So we're going to overturn this referendum, just as the appellate division did. But we think that maybe the Commissioner of Education should look at the funding formula and determine if there's a more equitable funding formula. Well, the Commissioner actually modified the funding formula, which is unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented. I think it was wrong on the part of the Supreme Court. There's a provision in the New Jersey Constitution, which the court never mentioned, and it's called the Separation of Powers Clause. Now, you may have heard that phrase applied to the federal government. They don't even have it in the federal Constitution, but it does delegate that certain branches of government do certain things. In New Jersey, we have it right in the Constitution. It says there are 3 branches, and one branch does not do what the other branch does. Well, guess what? The Commissioner of Education is in the executive branch. Now, nobody argued this to the court at that time because they didn't see it coming. I've spoken to the attorneys who were in that case. But I had a case up in Riverdale Regional where we absolutely argued that separation of powers does not allow a Commissioner of Education to mandate a change in what the legislature has done. So I believe, as Chuck has been saying to you, that I believe it's impossible to happen because it would violate the New Jersey Constitution. And we were the first council to make that argument because we saw it coming. The other guys who were in that case before our case, they never saw it coming. It just came out of the blue. So they may possibly make an argument that they are constitutionally imperiled by not being allowed to change the school district or change the funding formula, and therefore that the Commissioner of Education should grant relief. I believe after the Berkeley Township case, we will defeat any such application to the Commissioner if they do that. I don't know if they will, but if they are able to talk those people and that are the governing body of the city of Cape May into doing that, they're going to face the decision in the Borough of Seaside Park versus Central Regional School District right between the eyes, and I don't think that the Commissioner can ignore that decision. So my job is to stop things as quickly as they can be stopped. And that's my mission, I'm sure, the mayor and council want me to do.
And if I could expound upon that, if I can expound upon that, Mr. Campbell was brought here today, and his instructions from the mayor and council here were not to put our spin on this thing. was to present this thing as objectively as it could possibly be presented, so that the only thing that was heard or only thing that came out were the facts. And because of that, we defy any Cape May or anybody else to disprove anything that has been set forth here today. Based on what he said, there's the relief that is being sought by Cape May has never been gotten in the past by anyone in a similar circumstance, and can never be gotten in the future merely by the fact that the majority of voters are in Lower Township. In order for it to happen here, Lower Township itself would have to vote for this increase, and I doubt very much anyone would vote for that. And that's why, of course, it's important for everybody to come out on that referendum day to do that. There's no doubt in my mind, after Mr. Campbell's comments, there should be no doubt in yours, that Cape May can't prevail. But if it takes 10 years, as it has taken other municipalities to fight this battle, even if we prevail, we still lose. We took some time to go into the most recent case, Seaside Park, which just recently lost the appellate division thanks to the efforts of Mr. Campbell. And we found out that over the course of the last 9 years, the borough of Seaside Park has paid Mr. Gagliardi's firm almost $700,000. There were 9 other attorneys. That equates to millions of dollars that were thrown away for absolutely no benefit, and 10 or more years of effort. It is abundantly clear that no one can win this game, and that there is only one way on the planet not to lose this game, and that's not to play. And that's the message that we hope to get out to Cape May, so they understand it is our hope that they get this message. It's our hope that when that referendum is heard, when the ballot, when it's put on the ballot and the election comes out, that the city of Cape May themselves vote this thing down. Because after all, it's wrong. It seeks to undermine the most basic thing in society, and that's to educate the next generation to carry on. So, having said that, we also have Mr. Crowley here. I think we should probably make some time for Mr. Crowley. Unless,
A question, if I can?
absolutely.
Very practical question, and I think it's for both council and for Mr. Campbell. I think it's clear that everyone in this room understands that we are to vote against withdrawal of Cape May from the regional school district. But as many of us also know, ballot questions often are written such that no means yes and yes means no. So who is informing the question that will be placed on the ballot, and how will the correct response for Lower Township residents be communicated to the residents so that we don't vote no and accidentally vote yes?
Well, the question, the decision to put it on the ballot was made by the School Board of Education. They have already formulated their question. It is 2 questions, and it's put out there, and I think it's in basic plain English. Should the city of Cape May be allowed to withdraw from the school district? And it seems to me that everyone in Lower Township knows what that means, and they know what the answer to that is. If you want to allow it to withdraw and hence your taxes to go up, then vote no. I mean, excuse me, vote yes. There, say that, there you go, just proved your point.
I rest my case.
I don't know if they changed the question, but I think there were 2 parts to the question that were supposed to be on the ballot. And one was whether Cape May City could withdraw or should the regional school district be dissolved. And to either one of those questions, the answer should be no. It should remain a regional school district, and no, Cape May City should remain in the school district. So that's a good question, because I think it's a 2-part question with 1 vote. I thought I heard that. So then really the answer is always no. Just say no.
Yes, sir. A question to council. Will Lower Township provide like lawn signs and stuff so that people are aware?
Let's just say that we intend, and we've already had this discussion, to have an aggressive campaign to inform the voters. So exactly what that translates and how it does, it remains to be seen. But we will certainly use everything at our disposal. We understand the importance of this fight. It's why we got into it. We recognized what was going on. We stood up and said, wait a second, time out here. And we're the ones, and he's our guy. You know, we're proud to have him here, as we're proud to have Mr. Crowley here. I think they'll do a more than adequate job, and his message is well said. I mean, it's fairness to us that's being taken away. I mean, it is fair as it sits now. We will defend this. We will have an aggressive campaign, and the people, every person in this town will understand how important it is they vote the correct way, and that they go to the polls. It's as simple as that. So
Thank you.
it's not complicated. We'll be there. Don't worry. Guaranteed.
Now, we also have with us today Terry Crawley. Terry is the former superintendent of schools in Cape May County. Mr. Crawley has been employed to respond to Cape May's feasibility study. And if you'd like to come up and give a few words, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members and members of the public. Just a brief aside, Mr. Campbell was mentioning 1976 as the seminal year for funding, and the schools were closed. I was one of those people who was laid off when the schools were closed, so I've been around for a couple of years. My role and what we're going to work on with council is to simply prepare the technical information in terms of the feasibility study. The Cape May City has already produced their feasibility study, which I have preliminarily reviewed, and we'll be producing one for a very similar, but I think a little bit different in terms of some of the aspects that we focus on, and then present that back to council for their review. And basically, it's a pretty standard format, and it sounds pretty easy, but actually it involves a great deal of work. Within the statutes, and I'm not an attorney, by the way, but within the statutes and the administrative code under which schools function in New Jersey, it lays out the procedure for a feasibility study. And typically a feasibility study is done when you're making a change to something. It's a little bit different in this case because Lower Township is not making a change, but we still have to respond to the information that's out there. You're looking basically at three different aspects. One, and was mentioned already, is the racial balance. And once again, that's a policy decision by the state of New Jersey that a school district could not withdraw from a regional district where it would significantly change the racial balance or the racial makeup, so that a community could not simply say, we don't want our youngsters to go to school with these youngsters, so we're going somewhere else. So that's the first aspect you have to look at. The racial balance. Is there a significant negative impact in racial balance? The second question was alluded to already, was the educational program. And the educational program we study and we look at in terms of what's being offered now and what would be offered if this proposed change were enacted. And preliminarily, and we don't have all of the data just yet, but preliminarily, a significant loss of revenue, not accompanied by a loss of students, means that something has to give. And that what would have to give is a portion of the educational program. To some extent, we don't know yet because we haven't completed the study, but my guess is it would be a significant factor. It could include things, it would include obviously your biggest money driver in any educational budget is personnel. Textbooks, even though they're far more expensive today than they were just several years ago, that pales in comparison to your personnel costs. I'm not just talking about teachers, I'm talking about administrators, support staff, guidance counselors, bus drivers, maintenance men, the whole gamut of personnel that make up the operation of a school district. So if you lose a significant amount of revenue, that's where you go. You cut staff. And once, by cutting staff, obviously you're cutting program because you don't have enough teachers to teach all of the courses that you currently want. And the other side of that is that you increase class sizes. And in New Jersey, there's certain restrictions on class sizes for special ed or handicapped children. But for regular ed children, there really are not. There's guidelines and there's educational research that says what's the ideal class size. But there's no controlling statute which says that a regular 9th grade English class can have no more than X students. Pick a number, 20, 25, 30, whatever it may be. So you'd be cutting staff, you'd be cutting program, increasing class sizes. Preliminarily, that's the conclusion that I'm coming to, although The study may point me in a different direction, I don't know yet, but it would seem to be logical, if I don't have enough money to pay my teachers, I'm going to have to let somebody go, which is going to impact program, which is going to impact class size. The third aspect that we look at in a feasibility study is the financial implications of whatever this change may be. And looking at the financial implications, once again preliminarily, obviously the loss of that kind of revenue is a significant driver of increased cost to someone else. And the tax levy, and we all, Mr. Campbell spoke about the equalization and the assessment, which is a little bit different thing, but those are some of the things that we'll look at as well, because in the end we have to translate what that means in terms of your tax bill. I mean, personally, I get a tax bill, well, I get them too many times, and they're always higher than they were the last time, but I really don't care what my equalized property value is, I care what my tax bill says. And they're two different things, so that's another aspect we'll have to look at. And just real quickly, in a regional district, that tax bill is determined using equalized value, but you take, in this case, the local school and the regional school, and there's a portion, it's called an allocation of taxes in a regional district, and it takes your equalized property value, and then it assigns a portion of that to the elementary district based upon numbers of students, and then it assigns a portion of that to the regional district, so that it's not all regional district, because you have to fund that elementary program as well. So that apportionment then comes out to a percentage basis, and that's the information that we would have to do some analysis on to see if indeed that changed and you lost a constituent member, Cape May City at this point, but if you lost that constituent member, how does that impact what the taxes would be with only 2 constituent members? And once again, we haven't run the numbers yet, and I have a preliminary idea. My gut feeling tells me, obviously, that the impact, if that were to happen, would not just be to Lower Township, but it would also be to West Cape May, proportionally speaking, so that it has a far-reaching impact. So once we get all that information in and analyze that data with all the statistics that are involved in it, then we are able to draw some conclusions. And going back to those 3 prongs again, that it pretty clearly says in both the statutes and the administrative code that there's no negative impact in either racial balance, educational program, or financial to any member. So if at the end of the study we can honestly say there is no negative impact, then it can proceed. If there is a negative impact, then obviously we will point that out as part of our study. And then eventually this report goes to the County Superintendent of Schools for his review, and then eventually works its way up to Trenton through a board of review, and I'm not going to bore you with all the other details of what happens after that. But it is a multi-step process. Now, if in the interim, while we're working on this, and working with Mr. Salmon, at the interim as we're working on this, something ceases. If Mr. Campbell is successful, or if the referendum in November occurs, the non-binding referendum, then basically our work would stop at that point, because there's no reason to continue with anything, because there's nothing to prove anymore. So we're in kind of a fluid situation, but we're prepared to meet the deadline for the county superintendent's review, which is December 16th, and we will have that report done. That's our goal, to get it done, obviously, before that time, so it can be submitted to him. So that's the overview of what we're here for, to gather the data, gather the information, utilizing the existing report already from Cape May City, because there is data in there that addresses each of those areas, using that, but also doing some of our independent research to do 2 things: to look at some of the things that I believe should have been in there that were not, and also to verify the information that is presented within that report as to being accurate, which I'm assuming it is, but anytime you're doing research, you can't assume what your source is valid. You have to go back to the original source again. So that's our process. We'll be working on that for the next several months. And it's not as sexy, if you will, as holding a referendum and vote no and all those other things. It's pretty much grunt work, which has to be done, though, to enable not only the council here, but enable the Department of Education through the County Superintendent's Office to have all of the accurate information available to him for his review. So that's basically
Thank you.
what I'm hoping to do.
Very good. No question.
Thank you, John. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
I've been retired for a while. Can you do that again? I really like it. Thank you very much.
He's our guy. Yeah. I'm pretty happy with the team we've assembled. I think all of council is. I think they're qualified. I think that they'll do an excellent job. They understand how important this is to us, so we're grateful to have them here. Council?
Frank, I have a question. Let's say it dawns on the citizens, our neighbors in Cape May, that what they're embarking upon is going against the grain of how we as a society want to fund education, number one. Number two, that it could take 9 years. Number three, it could cost millions of dollars. And number four, the likelihood of success is virtually nil. If it dawns on them that all those things are the case, what do they need to tell their elected officials to do? How can they stop this and pull the plug, is my question.
Well, they could fire their lawyer. But he will be very persuasive to them on what kinds of savings are possible, and that's it, as Chuck puts it, the impossible happens. If they win the referendum, or if they are able to make a petition to the commissioner, which the commissioner will entertain, if the commissioner will entertain it. And I really truly believe that now that we have an appellate division decision, which for the first time really explains how the system is supposed to work fairly, and I think the judge put a stamp on it, that this was not an unfair system. She actually understood the taxes. That I'm hopeful that that will have an effect on, let's say, the leaders of the city of...
Can they withdraw their motion, their resolution
yes.
at any time?
They can, at any time, they can decide not to pursue what they're now in pursuit of.
And if I can add one thing, the opinion of Seaside Park versus the Commissioner of the Board of Education, along with Berkeley Township and other respondents, is an opinion that was just published or approved for publication on August 12th. I would recommend anybody that really wanted to understand this whole area and what Cape May is asking for, read this opinion. Because it is very educational. It basically sums up all the things that Mr. Campbell has said about the tax structure, and that this is not a tuition, it's a tax. They can never be considered anything but a tax. And it deals with how the law evolved and why it is where it is and why the courts would never decide otherwise.
And that leads to just one more question. They've been saying, they've been taking this, the amount of money that they're contributing to the regional district, dividing by the number of students, and saying this is how much they're paying per student. You don't think that's an accurate and proper, an honest way of describing what's going on? Would you explain how you think that should be?
That is a very important point. The deputy mayor is explaining that they always talk about per pupil cost, and I think they're saying now it's $80,000 per pupil that they contribute to the regional school district. That is not so. It's a per pupil tax levy. I'll grant them that. It's a per pupil tax levy, but it is not, it has nothing to do with the cost of educating the children from the city of Cape May. And that's the only proper way to determine what the cost of education is to take all the children in the district, all those from Lower Township, all those from the borough of West Cape May, and all those from the city of Cape May, and divide that number of students into the total budget. That is a per pupil cost. So for them to say that it's a per pupil cost is absolutely inaccurate. It has nothing to do with the cost of education. It does have to do with their contribution on a per pupil basis, and that was where the Supreme Court, believe it or not, got confused in 2004. They were very, very shocked at the per pupil tax levy, which they called cost on a per pupil basis, and that's where they went wrong, in my opinion. I just wish I could be in one of those cases and talk to those guys up there. But I'd be very respectful, I'm sure. After all, they are the Supreme Court. But once the Supreme Court speaks, it becomes the law. And it's very difficult to get those things changed. And really, only the Supreme Court can do it. Actually, not only the Supreme Court. The law could be changed by the legislature and the governor, but those things don't happen overnight, and I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court will take a much better look at things once they look at Judge Axelrod's opinion, because Judge Axelrod's opinion actually had briefs on these points. The Supreme Court, believe it or not, had no briefs on the issue of regional school district funding, and yet they sent it to the commissioner, which is an extraordinary thing in the first place. He sat as a legislature of one. There is no such thing. Nobody, no one person in the state should act as a legislature. And that's the position they put the Commissioner of Education in. And I can tell you that the answer at the oral argument, which I was not at, but I can tell you that when the Deputy Attorney General who argued the case was in front of the court, one of the justices said, well, Miss Miller, doesn't the commissioner have the power to set the regional school district funding formula? And she answered him very directly and knew that this was going to be trouble. She said, no, Mr. Justice, and I won't mention his name, but she said, no, sir, nor would he want that power. And what she realized is that the separation of powers says there are some things that the legislature and the governor do, and that's make laws. No one else makes laws. And that's where the court went awry. And I hope they'll never do that again.
Okay. Real simple, I want to thank Mr. Crowley and Mr. Campbell for taking us on as clients. I especially want to thank the school board of Lower Cape May Regional, which is in the back, and their superintendent for putting this on as referendum questions, because that is highly important for us to get past this. We're saying how much? According to the report, they're using a number of 5.9 million is what Cape May is paying. In Lower Township taxes, because we figured on $400,000 equals a penny in tax increase. That equals 14.75 cents tax increase. Everyone was complaining last year about the 2.9 and the 1.6 here and this, that. 14.75 cent tax increase. We need to get the vote out. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care if you don't like the governor or who's running. I don't care anything. You get people out and they have to vote no. Everybody you know, get them out there to vote no. It's that simple.
You know, and since it does come down to how much money it costs, which is why this was brought up by Cape May. If Cape May factors in the cost of doing 10 years of litigation, well, in Seaside Park, it was over $700,000 to them. And the likelihood of success, which is basically nil, the tax decrease that gave birth to this notion will ultimately end up in a tax increase. If that's the message that Cape May finally catches on to, then what Mr. Campbell suggested, or what Mr. Clark suggested, is that they could just change their minds. That's a good reason to do it.
Right. I think that's the key. I think that's what we're hoping, is that when Cape May City, their council, sees what they're up against and sees the prospect of trailing this thing down the road and just spending money after money, that maybe cooler heads will prevail and they'll face the reality and just back out. I mean, that's what we're trying to hope that happens here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I almost forgot. And they obviously think in their study that the school's a great school. They love the programs. They have some great programs at that school. My daughter went through the calculus program. I don't know where they got that teacher. He's amazing. But it's so good they want to stay in the school district. I can see if they wanted to get out of the school district, but they don't. It's a wonderful school, people. We have a gem here. Let's fight and protect it.
Right.
Well, what we need to do as well is all of our friends in Cape May, remind them that it's best for them to vote no and no.
Keeping in mind that we do educate the majority of their workforce and most of their police department.
Yes, that would send the message they don't want their money spent on foolish endeavors. Like that, Chris?
Okay, thank you for your attendance. We appreciate your taking the time out of your busy schedule. And I hope that, and I think, Frank, someday you'll address the Supreme Court. I just hope it's not on our case. 'Cause I mean, I don't want to, you know, it's like being in a taxi cab and seeing the numbers going around. My heart will stop if we end up there. So I hope that they understand that this is money not well spent, and although we certainly feel, you know, honored to have you and Terry as far as helping us out, but, you know, the day when we part will be...
Don't take it personal.
Nothing personal. But, you know, you come down to visit and vacation, but not come down here to pick up a check. I mean, thank you. Okay. Take a minute to let these fine gentlemen roll out the door, and we'll move on with the regular meeting. Chris, did you want to say anything? You don't have to.
Thank you.
Okay, that's what I told them. Thank you.
I'll see you in your next meeting.
I will see you, I'll be up there tomorrow night. I'm not sure. What's my next meeting? Okay, we're moving, where'd everybody go? Okay, we're down to the consent agenda. I have an addition that came up, and we have. I'll read it out. It's Resolution 2013-246. It's award of a contract to Horizon Entertainment for a Teen Truth Drug Seminar. And there's a reason why we got to get this on, so that we can get moving on this. And it says, whereas 40A 11.6 allows an award of a contract as an exemption to the local public contract law, whereas the amount of said contract shall be in accordance with the services set forth on Exhibit A, with the total cost for all services not to exceed $3,450 pursuant to contract between the Township and Horizon Entertainment, which upon approval requires an initial payment of $1,725 balance to be paid upon completion of the seminar. Whereas the seminar will take place on October 4th, 2013 at the Lower Cape May Regional Media Center on Route 9. Whereas the CFO has determined sufficient funds are available in the budget under celebration of public events, be it resolved by the Township Council, and the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to sign the attached agreement with Horizon Entertainment. And they are coming to the schools, and it's a story in itself. And the story goes to Mitch Plen and Jim Ridgway from the rec department. And when we began our meetings on substance abuse, maybe 6 months ago, and we challenged each department to come up with some kind of a plan to help out in this fight, and it is a fight. You know, there is an epidemic out there, and these two guys went out and solicited funds from various places, and in order to pay for a motivational speaker who's anti-drug and anti-substance abuse message, and provided, and we have a great partnership with the regional school, and this guy will be coming on October 4th. And it's just another small piece of a big puzzle that the township's trying to put together to combat this scourge. And the credit all goes to those two guys in the rec department for their efforts to go out and find somebody, their efforts to not break our budget, but to go out and kind of scurry the countryside looking for people to donate to this program, and they did it. And credit goes to the schools for their partnership with the township in this fight, and it's all there. So I'm just reading it out, but they met the challenge is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, that's on the consent agenda also. That's 246. Do I have any questions from council in relationship to the consent agenda? Okay, guys, okay, then I'll open up to public comment on the consent agenda. Yes, sir.
John Skronsky, 607 Arctic Avenue. On 237, the approval of place-to-place transfer. for
Yes.
What's that mean? They're going to put
It's
alcohol at different parts of the store?
Yes. In other words, give your story.
It's an expansion of the licensed premises. Rather than just keeping the alcohol in the alcohol store right now, they can sell it throughout the store. It's an expansion of the premises.
Well, then that'll mean that the checkers at Acme will have to check for age if somebody's buying liquor throughout the store.
Yep. Absolutely. This has already been approved by the ABC. This is the last piece of it, get the approval from Township Council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Point well taken. Okay. Anybody else? Close the public portion.
Approval of minutes from August 19, 2013. Resolutions 2013-236 through resolution number 2013-246.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Councilmember Conrad?
Yes.
Councilmember Neville?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Beck?
Yes. Move down to council comments.
Most important thing in this area right now, we're going to reiterate this for a while. I've gone to meetings, everybody I talked to. We have to get these referendums defeated. It's going to sound repetitive. I'm writing down what I want to talk about tonight, and I wrote just numbers upon numbers of how much this equals. 14.75 cent tax increase potential. We have to vote no. We're trying to protect the residents of Lower Township, protect our schools. We have to do this, get the word out.
Members vote no and no.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, next council meeting, we're going to continue with the discussion of economic development. We've had another good economic advisory committee meeting. One of the things that came out of that was in the newspapers, our interest in pursuing the possibility of aquaculture. When we learned that that has a growth potential of perhaps another 300 jobs, that got our attention. And so we're going to be doing a tour of our aquaculture facilities and understanding what would need to be done in order to expand that. The other thing that's coming up is what can we do about the airport? This has been a conversation that's been going on for a long time. And the mayor and council are going to be looking at options coming, perhaps I think at the next council meeting, in ways that we could spur the economy and encourage businesses to do their business in the airport. So that'll be coming up, I think, in our next council meeting.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. You might have noticed that we're sitting short a member up here tonight. And he's sitting out there, Glenn Douglas. And he has resigned from council for reasons that have to do with his pension. I think he might get up and explain that in a minute. But I just want to say that he's a heck of a good guy. I always thought he was dedicated to the people he served, and we will miss him. I wish him well in his retirement. And, you know, it's like I said, as far as I can see, he always represented well the people that in Ward 3, so we'll go from there. All right, we have some important information coming out here. I don't know where to begin. The September 9th, week from, next Monday, I should say, 6 p.m. meeting with DEP to discuss the hazard mitigation grant program to provide funding for eligible full-time residents to assist with the elevation of their homes to meet flood insurance risk maps. It's not a meeting on anything other than that. They have a program and there's a short window on it. You have to register. You can go online. You can go to the townshipoflower.org and follow the icons and link onto this program and pre-register before you come here. Those homeowners who have residences below the flood map elevation requirements can expect significant increases in their flood insurance in the future. Those homeowners in low elevation areas should attend this meeting to determine if you are eligible to receive reimbursement for up to $30,000 in cost to elevate their homes. And really, you only have to the 15th of September to register for this program. And if you're in along the bay, and we delivered a lot of flyers out to homes that we feel may have a chance to register for this program, but this is only to raise your home. So in other words, if the flood map came out like along the bayfront, and they have to be at 11 feet, 10 foot plus 1 foot for freeboarding along the bayfront homes. If your elevation is at like say 7 or 8, you're going to have some problems with flood insurance. And this program, if you're a full-time resident, there's the potential that you may be able to receive up to $30,000 to have your house elevated and above that 11-foot mark to whatever height you want to put it, I guess, in a certain way. The point is, if you don't find out, if you don't register for this, and then down the line you find out you could have, there's nothing we can do for you. This only has to do with that aspect of this entire issue. Okay, as far as it's not about groundwater, it's not about flooding, it's about elevating homes only. So there'll be people here to answer all those questions, and there'll be people here that can register you, but I got a feeling that might be pretty crowded, because I think that there's people coming from Middle Township and even from Cape May further down. We were on a conference call, myself, the manager, and a few others, going back maybe a week ago with this, and there's only, I think, 3 sites in Cape May County that they're going to do this at, and we're the southernmost site. So there could be, and with the new maps coming out, and the inclusion of certain parts of our town in the map that were not included in the map back in February when it was released, I anticipate a lot of people may have exposure here that they need to take a look at that. We're trying to get the word out. We'll probably do another 911 call. It's important. I don't want to see people lose the opportunity to help themselves. Okay, to continue. September 11th, where did the summer go? 6 p.m. flag ceremony at Sunset Beach. The mayors of Lower Township, Cape May Point, West Cape May will speak as well as Lieutenant Commander Scott Ray of the Coast Guard Training Center. Lower Township police officers and volunteer firefighters will be in attendance. And here's another one that's real important, and we're trying to get this message out, and we're going to keep banging the drum until people listen. On Monday, 6 p.m. on September 23rd, there'll be a drug symposium here at Town Hall. It's about the whole problem that we're having in New Jersey, and Lower Township has it, Cape May County has it. And if you come to this drug symposium, you'll get a state of the state, meaning that we're going to have, like say, the prosecutors coming, our chief will be here, and they'll talk about the drug problem in Lower Township. We have a commitment from the schools to come to talk about what they're doing in the schools to try and alleviate this problem. And we're going to have people here from the rehabilitation, Cape Counseling, Cape Assist, all of those organizations to speak briefly about what they can do to help you or somebody in your family. I don't think there's a lot of families that have been impacted by this. And you may not come specifically because it's you that has a problem, but you might come because you know somebody in your family that has a problem. And we're going to put the tables around the side here, and there'll be people from these organizations, and you'll be able to go to them and try and see if you can't get some kind of assistance. I mean, people have to wake up and listen. I mean, I've threatened to take an axe to the cable lines, but I don't want to get tarred and feathered and run out of town just yet. So, but I mean, you have to come down and you have to invest an hour or two and see if you can't, prepare your kid for the future. Keep your kid out of harm's way. Okay, so that's that. Lower Township is on Facebook. Visit Facebook for municipal information, photos of your friends and neighbors, and news of upcoming events. Okay, we got that one down. All right, I keep looking over. Who keeps adding that? Is that you? All right, okay, we got that down. I think that's it. We'll open it up to public questions or comment. Yes, sir.
My name's Ed Butler. I'm from the Village. I'm going to come over here and get in front of this camera because I think it's time to address the membership and also the people of this township. There's two things that's pretty important that's been going on. I agree with you to say no to the thing, referendum. That's definitely what should be done. The other thing is this floodplain map.
Right.
Now, it came out on the 27th, and we all know about it. It's been in the papers, and it's going to impact this area so severely that you won't have to worry about your drug problem, because there's not going to be anybody be able to live here and raise it, even though you have $30,000 or so from, if you get that. But you have to go online and look at this thing and try to get each criteria and every step filled out. It's not that easy. You could have to, sit there in the application, which is good. I agree with you on that. The other part of it is this whole thing along the bay in different areas, the height of it. It's so easy to say, raise your house. It'll cost you $50,000, $60,000 or better. In some places you can't do it. And everyone along that bay, all the way down to Cape May, all the way down to the point, when that bay is in it. And you know that, you all know it. I know it. I looked at the maps. It's there. We're in deep trouble here. It's going to ruin this area, and it's going to be really bad for the taxpayers in this area. You won't be able to afford a flood insurance. Now, if you don't have a mortgage, that's fine. You can just say, forget about it. If it goes, it goes. But if you have a mortgage, you have to have flood insurance. That's all I got to say. I'm very disturbed about it because I'm one of those people. And I got to talk for myself like the rest of the people in this township that's along that bay. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Yes, sir. Yes, I can't see who's under the hand. Yes. I saw a hand up in the air. Okay, there you go. Yes.
Listen, how do you opt out of that, what is it, electric?
Give your name for the record, please, Howard.
Helen Thompson, 44 East Delaware Parkway, Villas.
Well, we're not in it. It hasn't been passed yet, so it hasn't happened yet. There'll be instructions when it does happen.
All right, and I got a couple questions if you don't mind.
Sir.
These are general questions, all right? All right, when the township code enforcement or the zoning department failed to do a mandated job, such as enforce a local ordinance, who in the township is responsible for that?
Well, if you have a specific problem, you would address the town manager, and he would take care of that for you.
So he's responsible?
Yes.
Are you responsible, Mike?
I'm responsible to make sure we provide the services that this council's approved. I know what you're talking about here. You have an issue with your neighbor.
I am talking in general, because there's other people who do want to know this, by the way. It's not just me.
Is this in litigation,
What?
this issue that you're referring to?
I'm referring to when a township code department, code enforcement, or zoning department failed to do a mandated job, such as enforce a local ordinance, who in this township is responsible?
Well, I'll give you a
That's the
general answer because
question.
you had a general question. Generally, they do the best job they can to comply with the ordinances, and they serve this township well.
Okay, who is
And I'm responsible to, through the council's authority that they've given me, to make sure our departments do their job, and they do it well. There's always going to be a few exceptions where things fall between the cracks, and if it's brought to our attention, to a council member or the manager's office, it's addressed.
Okay, are local ordinances supposed to be enforced, or no?
There's discretion in every ordinance, in every law that's enforced.
So if there's a clear and concise ordinance and it's not enforced, which would be specifically against that ordinance, that would be okay with this township? I'm asking the question.
This is, we're in like, this is like, I feel like I'm in law school.
Yeah, let me just say this, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, come on.
Helen has a situation, I don't want to get into the situation.
I know it.
But I'm going to give a general answer that I know what's going on, I can't respond publicly anymore because it may end up in litigation.
Okay? So you can't give any answer on whether or not when a taxpayer has a code that doesn't get enforced.
If it doesn't get enforced and they bring it to my attention, I will evaluate the situation. Every situation is different, but they're treated fairly.
And if you don't evaluate it, who's next in line? Anybody from council?
You can always override my decision and go to the council.
Who would be responsible in council?
Council as a whole, not an
The
individual.
council as a whole? So you would come to this meeting?
Yeah, it's so hypothetical. If you have a specific problem, take it up with the manager. If for some reason that doesn't work, then put it on paper and give it to council, and council can proceed from there.
If you may, Mayor, allow me, what you're talking about is selective enforcement.
Exactly.
Okay, you're claiming there's a situation where there is a specific ordinance that's not being enforced in your case. And as Mr. Vol stated out, it's his responsibility to see to it that the people underneath of him do their job, and that's what he does. But you continue to question, well, what if you don't do your job? Or what if the council doesn't address the situation? Then your answer is the courts. That's all there is. And now if a judge looks at the situation and deems that it needs to be addressed differently than we're addressing it, he will order it and we will carry it out.
Okay, so that's the option here. You go to the mayor, then you go to the council, then you go to the courts.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, she brought up a good point about the electric. Be careful out there, there's some real good scams going about the electric switches. I had one call, contact me for clean energy, it's only gonna cost you 8 cents more than Atlantic Electric. And if you didn't, that's so you can have nice clean solar, electric, or wind powered. But they wanted you to reply yes or no, and you signed the paper. Basically, you were signing something saying, well, either give me the 8 cent or give me whatever other rate. You're now my provider. And it said it in the small print. Be careful on these energy companies. There are scams going out there that will lock you in.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to address council? This gentleman, then that lady there.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. Jeff Lindsay, Village Road. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Republican Committee regarding the vacancy in Ward 3 that the Mayor addressed earlier. Pursuant to the statutes of New Jersey, this morning I delivered to the Deputy Clerk 3 names and resumes of candidates qualified to fill the vacancy in Ward 3. The committee requests that Council move forward this evening with selecting one of those names so that the residents of Ward 3 are represented on Council. Additionally, the committee, which is composed of representatives elected by the citizens of this township, we voted last night to endorse Eric Simonson as the Ward 3 Republican candidate in the upcoming November election for that seat. So I ask that Council move forward tonight, not only in selecting a candidate, but in selecting Eric Simonson as the candidate.
Okay, Mr. Lindsay, I took a look at your notice, which you all received today, and it refers to 40A 16-11. And that's the appointment to fill a vacancy, and the procedures that you set forth in there were accurate under those circumstances. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, just as a matter of fact, the statute that really applies to this situation is 48:16-5. And basically what that says, and I can read it to you, it says if a vacancy occurs at any time subsequent to September 1 to the next last year up to the expiration of the term of office, whose office has become vacant, the office may be filled for its unexpired term by appointment by the governing body as hereafter provided, and that's the procedure that you cited.
That's subsequent to September 1st, correct?
That is correct.
And Mr. Douglas's resignation was August 30th.
That's right.
Prior to.
No, if the vacancy occurs subsequent to, then the procedure you outlined applies. If the vacancy occurs prior to or any other time, then it goes to general election.
No, that's incorrect. That's an
I've
incorrect
got the
statement of the law,
statute
sir.
right here.
And sir, I'm an attorney too, and I reviewed it.
All right, well, listen,
And we have
I-
another attorney. Your review of the law is incorrect. However, if that's the recommendation the council's going off, that incorrect statement of the law, then we can come back next meeting.
What
and
possible interpretation can you have for the black and white language that I'm reading right here in the statute?
Sir, it's wrong. I can tell you that
Okay,
it's wrong.
then the
But
statute's
in
wrong.
any event, I did come up here to debate the statute. My question was, will you fill that vacancy tonight?
My advice to council is that the statute says that it goes to the ballot. It also goes on and says that the governing body may fill the vacancy temporarily before the ballot, but that's a decision that council would have to make, and since it's been posed upon us just today, I would suggest that you take some time to make a decision on that particular issue. But my advice on this particular issue is that the vacancy has from November 1, or from the election on, can only be filled by the general election.
Okay, well, regardless, my stand is that I'm not making any appointments tonight.
Okay. Will you make it next meeting?
Oh, I have no idea. I have to, like I said, I think this came sometime today.
Correct. It
Am I
came this
correct
morning.
on that?
That's correct.
All right, well, you may find it hard to believe, but the meeting day is tough around here. I haven't even looked at anything right now, so if you're asking me if I would make an appointment the next time, I don't know that.
And I don't doubt that you're busy, Mayor, and I don't.
I thank you for that.
I don't doubt that at all. And the only reason we came with so quickly is last time we went through this process, we didn't come as quickly, and you pointed that out to us. And in hindsight, going through what I did last time and the procedures we went through, there was ways we could have improved it, which is moving forward quickly like we are now.
Right.
So I just wanted to move forward as quickly as possible and get you those names as quickly as possible so that council can make the decision.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Somebody else had their hand up. There was a lady over here that wished to address. She's
My name is Janet Reeves. I'm president.
would you please come up and take the microphone, please, if you can?
My name is Janet Reeves. I am president of the Village Civic Club, also a member of the Village Golden Agers and the Lower Township Lower Federation. My concerns are the Millman Center for seniors. I understand that Mr. Millman's legacy left the property for the residents of the villas and seniors to have a social life. Also, his endowment, money was settled to take care of that property for a number of years. It was supposed to be forever. Evidently, that has not happened. Now, I understand that the township has now taken over completely the Millman Center. I notice in your agenda, it is now the Millman Community Center and not the Millman Senior Center. I also would like to know, prior to all your renovations, we were told that we had compartments there where we could store all our utensils and whatever we needed to have a social gathering. Now, after the renovations are done, I believe they had a meeting. I could not attend due to a medical problem. I understand there are no compartments, whatever, for us to put our utensils for social activities at all. Also, we're not allowed to use the stove, or, I guess, other appliances. So I would really like someone to kind of settle this. We are a group of from 60 to 90 years of age. Now, us dragging in all this utensils for a social gathering and then taking it all out, I feel is improper. So I would like to know if I can have any solution here that we would have some sort of compartments. And also that we also had a social on Saturday, which was one of the Golden Age's moneymakers. Now if we want to run something on Saturday, we're told we'd have to pay $500, which is absolutely out of the question. So I would really like to have some resolution that we can get some storage there and that we can get some sort of cooperation with Mr. Bull. And that's about my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. As I talked to the lady prior to the meeting, a lot of research was done before the council authorized to move forward to renovate a building that's been left go for like 5 decades. Nothing's been done to it. And as many of you have seen, representatives from each of the respective groups that have used it, that are citizens of this community of Lower Township, it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the last 2 things we're doing now, council authorized the fire suppression system that is required by our fire inspector. That's the last piece, and the outside is going to be completely redone. So you're going to have a completely new building when we open, hopefully in the next several weeks. As far as storage, I told you we'll address that. I'm looking at, we don't want confusion. In the past, as you know, people had lockers all over that building. Okay? And Mr. Millman, yes, he was a Christian man. He wanted to remain as a community center to provide for the people in the community. We reviewed the deed and all that. As far as an endowment fund, this council doesn't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it. I wish we could have found that money, or somebody could have came forward and said, here's a check for council for Mr. Millman, and we wouldn't have spent all this money and the grant money to upgrade it today. But I'll be happy to talk with Mr. Plen tomorrow and Mr. Ridgway to make accommodations for the large groups to have some space in that building. So tomorrow you can meet with me or whoever you want with groups of say 50 and above members. And we don't want, the council doesn't want, and I support your efforts to have to drag stuff in and out. However, we're going to keep it clean. We've taken the building back. It's going to be there Monday through Thursdays for anyone in this community that has been using it in the past. It's going to be scheduled. We're going to have a rec aid there to accommodate you. We've got new TVs in there. We've got new speaker systems. We have the greatest high-tech available for you. We're going to continue with the programs we have there. However, and you can respect this, and all the taxpayers can, on the weekends, we're going to plan to rent it out. And we've met with the local Chamber of Commerce to support their vendors. The people that belong to the organization can provide catering, flowers, whatever it may be, a wedding reception, a shower, a birthday party, anniversary parties, what have you, to offset the cost so we can continue to provide good programs there and throughout our recreation department. So I will accommodate your request, and we'll make sure we can work that storage thing out. But we don't want to have a conflict in the past where there's locks all over the place, there was metal lockers here, water. You and I and the council want to be proud of that building, and we want it to stay that way.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you.
You bet. Yes, ma'am.
One more question. You said the next couple weeks?
No, I said the next few weeks. I believe, I told you this earlier tonight before the meeting, that probably all our mechanical work will be done inside and out besides the sidings, the sprinkler system, probably the next 3 to 4 weeks. The mayor asked me earlier what the target is, probably November 1st for our grand opening to present back to the community something they're going to be very proud of. I thank you, ladies.
Yes, ma'am.
Will you let us, excuse me, will you let us know in advance where we can store our items?
Yeah, that's part of what we're going to...
We're going to work on that tomorrow with our rec director.
Okay.
All right.
You'll get back to all the organizations?
Well,
or what?
we can do that, or a couple of leadership that's here tonight, if you contact Eileen, my assistant, or tomorrow, I'll be more than happy to talk to you.
Okay.
All right, Mayor?
Yes, this gentleman over here, and then you, John. Glenn, did you want us to talk? I think you had your hand up, and I said you should go next to her. Then your turn, John.
Council, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn my back to you, basically, to address the public so they can understand what happened here. Reluctantly, I was basically forced to resign from council. I have 29 years in the system, in the public employee retirement system. I decided to retire from my position at the Department of Corrections. What happened is, unbeknownst to me, and I was counseled at the retirement counseling sessions in Trenton with no problem. I could continue my elected position, basically retire out of the systems, and you no longer contribute to the systems. When I started in 2007, I was required by law. I tried, Claudia Cameron, our former clerk, retired clerk, I went to her and I said, I don't want to pay pension. I don't want to pay pension. She said, by law, I was required to contribute to pension. So from the salary that we received, I was required to pay pension. I've worked since 1990 at the state prison. I've had prior service with the county sheriff's department, county MUA. I had 29 years in the system. I had worked on this retirement. I had set September 1st as my retirement date. I started reviewing the paperwork. I came up with the issue, reported back to pension, basically that, and I'll read a statement that was prepared to go back to pension. And I've been a councilman since January 2007, an employee for New Jersey State Department of Corrections since 1990. In November 2010, this was addressed to pension in my behalf. Mr. Douglas was elected to a second four-year term as Lower Township Councilman. It began January 1st, 2011. When Mr. Douglas began his first term, he was required to participate in the pension system with his council position, as well as his state employment, even though he requested otherwise. Shortly thereafter, he and his wife made preliminary plans for retirement. He counseled 2 different times at pension counselors in Trent, both of which are of record, to inform that he could retire his state job and continue to serve his elected position. Recently, July 2013, I went back up to pension. I was counseled again, advised that there was no issues, and at that time, I was advised again that I was able to retain my office and receive a state pension. Mid-August, I came up with the section under Chapter 7A PL 2011, which is the law now, and it's part of the pensions and benefit reform. It basically states that it repealed the old law, which allowed you to retire out and continue your elected official. It enabled, it basically says that I cannot retire and collect my pension and hold an elected office simultaneously. I brought it back to their attention. We've been on conference calls with the pension board, or the pension directors, the attorney general, the governor's office. Okay, that Chapter 7.8 is 120 pages long. And that one section, there's a very little section about elected officials. There's no mention that, it basically says that the legislative deal with the pension system. The repeal, it only mentions it and set forth therein. There's no mention of what effect it might have on persons that are already serving elected positions. Basically, there was no grandfather clauses in this law, which there should have been. I've been deemed the only case that the pension board has actually had come to them since the law was enacted. I made a statement. I got caught in a storm. Prior statement I made, and that, I have to abide by the law. The law says that I have to resign. I resigned as of Friday. We were still waiting for a response from the Attorney General's office because there was an offer to me to not take a salary for the rest of my term. I was agreeable. They did not come back through that. We didn't get a call back. Pensions basically misrepresented the parts. That's been addressed. I did not want to leave council. I think we have a wonderful group. Everybody's working for the community, and I still want to be part of council. So basically what is out now is, believe it or not, the next paragraph says if you're a bona fide retired employee, you can be elected. You can do the job. You just don't pay pension. So basically, that's why I had to resign. I wanted the public to understand it wasn't, I was kind of, basically forced. I wanted to retire. I had set my years with the service. And the funny part about this whole thing is, and I'll say one statement, the governor says a statement about New Jersey's stronger than the storm. Well, I'm going to be stronger than this storm. And I will be in the general election. I can actually be in the general election to regain my seat. It's a stupid.
John?
John O'Rourke, 50 Main Street. I'd like to request that council change the ordinance for loading and unloading of commercial vehicles on commercial property, 7 days a week as opposed to the 5.
From
We had problems with
From 7 to 8 p.m. or a.m. you want to change, okay. Now, you've already spoken with the people from the Wawa. Has somebody
Well,
spoken?
they were, yeah, Jerry did. They were agreeable to it when we had the meeting.
All right.
And it was approved for 5 days, but not 7.
Yeah, I did, Jerry's not here, right?
Yeah, he said.
Okay, all right. This has to do with delivery and it's basically the noise ordinance, correct, John?
Yes.
And you would like to see it because for 5 days a week, it has noise prior to 8 a.m.
We had 3 trucks there Saturday before 7 a.m.
Okay, so this would make it consistent with the whole week and change it to 8 a.m.
Yes.
And we can put it on for work session at the next meeting.
All agrees with it, we just need it. Did Jerry get something from Wawa saying that?
That's what
No, we had it at the meeting. We had it at the meeting.
Well, you were there, right, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then we can move forward with that.
We can get that knocked right out.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Yes, ma'am. There you go.
Hi. I'm Peg McGurven. I'm president of the Villas Golden Agers.
Okay.
And I'm following up Janet Reeves' comments, all right, about the senior club members that use the Millman Center. Now, the Millman Center was closed to us, all right, as seniors as of December 2012. And we were told that we would be able to go back in, everything was going to be finished by the end of July, right, of this year. Now, mind you, we had to find other places. And not only did we have to find any other places, but we were told that we would have to pay insurance in order to meet in a building, all right, that the town obviously pays insurance for, or they couldn't be operating it. And this is a great hardship. We have as you know, a constitutional amendment that we have the freedom to assemble. And for the seniors in the villas, one of the places where we have been assembling, right, is the Millman Center. And it enables us to come up with some really good ideas to help the town, right? Not just to cheer each other up and that kind of thing. So what I'm asking is that the town council would reconsider, all right, its requirement that we buy insurance in order to be able to use the Millman Center. It's most prohibitive. And also, not all our groups are 50 or more, right? The numbers, obviously, some people go off to a better place, so they're no longer members of the club, or their families want them to move closer, right, as they get older or sicker. And so our numbers dwindle and they change. So when you were saying that you'd consider, groups of 50 or more, I don't find that workable. Also, the place was never, right, an alleyway. You made it sound as if the place was really disreputable, that you'd be embarrassed to say that it was part of your town. So the Millman Center was always a workable place. And the couple cabinets that they had, big deal. You've got 3 cabinets against a wall. That doesn't offend most people. You put a lock on it. Each group has its own little cabinet, and they can put a coffee pot. How would you like it if you went to your office every day, and somebody in your, a member of your office group had to carry in the coffee pot, okay, every day. And they had to bring in all the mugs. It wouldn't exactly make it very workable. But they want us to do it, all right, for all of our meetings. And so I would like the council, all right, definitely, to look into the insurance requirement for our use of the Millman Center. It's definitely very prohibitive. And also, if you could step it up. I mean, we don't want to let our peoples, we don't meet during the summertime, but we do want to be meeting, all right? We usually get together back in the fall. And now we're told that, guess what? It's going to be November 1st. So, you know, we consider ourselves valuable members. We obviously still continue to pay our taxes. We try to be as cooperative as possible. I just was host this past weekend to 10 members of my own family, 6 of whom were under 10 years of age, okay? And very, very glad to come down and to enjoy such a wonderful part of the earth. And it's a wonderful place to live, as you all know, since you're full-time residents. So I'd like to be made more welcome. If you could make us that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, I didn't catch your name, I'm sorry.
Peg McIrvin, M-C-I-R-V-I-N, Bybrook Drive.
Peg, thank you very much for your kind comments. There's going to be a coffee pot there. There's going to be several coffee pots there in the kitchen to take care of. You won't have to carry coffee pots in and out. We're going to try to work on accommodating some space, but we're not going to let the different groups take over that facility again and lock kitchen cabinets and lock other things. It was deplorable. You're going to have a building now that you'll be very proud of. The taxpayers are going to be very proud of. You're going to have the same use Monday through Thursdays at no cost. We're going to have an aide there to take care of your needs. There'll be the big room, let me finish, ma'am, the big room for big parties, and there'll be a big B room with the small room, which if you haven't seen yet, it's larger now, and it'll accommodate 50 people for smaller groups. The insurance, I'm going to ask the clerk, she's our commissioner of the Joint Insurance Fund. I'm going to ask Julie if you would address, prior to you getting here, ma'am, she was addressing the group on how to deal with insurance. Would you touch on that, Julie, please?
We as a municipality belong to the Joint Insurance Fund, the JIF. And as such, we are required, any organization which uses any room of any of the municipality buildings, you are required to provide us proof of insurance. That's the bottom line. Every organization is required by JIF, who we belong to provide us insurance.
All right, I would
Now,
like you to send
that
us
is-
certified letters with a copy of that statement or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's actually a part of the packet that was given to each organization for you to fill out for use of facilities. It's actually part of that packet already.
Does anybody else wish to address council?
I do. I got one more question, yes? Go ahead.
Just quickly on this issue, I want to ask, are we going to have an open house when it's all done, so anybody in the township can look at Moment Center?
Absolutely. The council's very proud of that building, and all the citizens are going to be very proud to see what the council's provided the facility. We're working on an open house right now. We'll have refreshments and make sure everybody can see what we have to offer.
That'd be a good way to make sure that, they understand what's there and that kind of part. The other part of it is, what you're talking about, the insurance part of it, then the garden club can't be here unless they have insurance.
They have already provided us insurance. Any organization which has any meetings in any township buildings has to provide us a use of facility agreement, which includes an insurance rider. Okay. Every organization, whether you use the Millman Center, the Rec Center, the Township Hall,
okay.
Any room, any office, any group. That is a requirement of our insurance, and it has been a requirement for quite some time.
That protects the township from any lawsuits.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. I just want to clarify that, thank you.
Yes.
Helen Thompson, 44 East Delaware Parkway Villas. I have one more question. The local ordinances, is the police department, are they authorized to write a citation for them? Or is it just code department, or what? The ordinances for this township in the code book, the local ordinances, can the police department write a citation for them?
A police officer in this township, sworn officers have the authority to write any local ordinance if they wish to.
So that was.
They have the authority to do it.
So that was another option that besides just you or them, correct? I mean, I'm just asking. It is, the police
It's
department.
a discretion of any of our enforcing officers to issue a citation or not.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else wish to address council?
Good night.
This is the public portion.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Aye.
Excuse me.